Hello and welcome to Business Sense. I am Ralph Rivas. For today's episode, we have Converge CEO Jesus Boboy Romero. Hi, sir. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Ralph.
Sir, Sir Boboy, Converge really boomed during the pandemic. As for the first half of 2021, your profits zoomed 158%. Uh, what's your outlook for the year and for the coming years? Will we see the same figures? Uh, Talaga bang malaki talaga yung kikitain niyo because of this pandemic, no?
Uh, the pandemic, of course, helped, no, but that's not really the only reason. We think the fundamental reason is that the high speed internet market, no, I refer to high speed internet, is really underserved and in some cases unserved. So what that means is there's so much demand. And today, when we look at the existing customers and the capacity of the major players, there's not enough to serve the demand. So as a result, we think that this fast growth will continue even in a three-player market. There's just too many customers still waiting to be connected. You just mentioned it yourself a bit earlier, diba?
Mm. Well, now, Sir Boboy, I understand that we're almost 2 years into the pandemic. We're starting to relax restrictions.
Mhm.
What's the prospect? What do we expect? Do we still see people using the internet more in the coming years, or medyo magsasubdue yung demand ng kaonte?
Well, we think there are two things to consider. No, one, as I mentioned earlier, the Philippines was simply lacking in terms of high-speed broadband services. So the take up was really suppressed, no, because there was not enough supply. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that we believe that behavior of the consumers has fundamentally changed. And by the way, no, the demographics have also shifted. So there's a lot more younger generation now compared to before. So the things like let's say study from home. Maybe when the schools get reopened, there'll be less of that, right? But the other activities that we do on the internet. So for example, entertainment, communicating with our friends, families, and some work from home, for example. But by the way, we actually launched our work from home packages way back in 2019, no? Way before the pandemic, because it is also becoming a trend. So then when you think about people consuming so much data that cannot be served by a just a postpaid or a prepaid mobile data plan, we have a strong conviction that every household who can afford a high-speed fixed broadband connection will buy one regardless of a lockdown or not.
Mm. Now, Converge is, of course, investing billions to further expand the networks. Your network, we're gonna talk about that in a bit. Pero, do you see the industry overall meeting the demand given the pandemic? Or talagang nahirapan ba yung industriya as a whole in keeping up with the demand brought about by the pandemic?
Maybe speaking for Converge, for example, we do run into situations where we have facilities in an area and it gets sold out. The other experience is that we get a lot of applications in places where we haven't rolled out yet. And maybe another anecdote I can tell you is that when we opened in a big city in Cebu, a lot of the customers that we signed up, we interviewed them. Um, are you using a high-speed internet? If yes, who? What we found out was that they have been waiting for quite some time, and some of them who actually switched were still on DSL. So if there is a service, it's not necessarily fiber. And in many cases, there was no available fiber in the first place. So yon yun ang tingin namin na the current players, no, and coming from my experience, cannot serve the demand today.
Mm. And now
That's
since we're already addressing that issue,
mm,
Sir Boboy, merong mga yung mga complaints, 'di ba? I think a couple of weeks ago yung mga outages in several areas in Luzon, and last year din massive din yung medyo marami yung nagreklamo on the outages. So what's your response to that?
well, that's a strategic initiative on the part of the company today, no? To harden the network, as we call it. So, for example, yung November last year was a massive power outage in one of our biggest network hubs, no, in Pasig. So, of course, the first thing we did was to make sure that that network hub has been rehabilitated totally, no? So, we formed a different team just to do the network and data center facility as well as the high availability power system. Second, we inaugurated a new network hub in Makati so that if something happens to Pasig, then we will not have too many customers affected. So Makati has been live since November of last year. We December. No, we promised that in 30 days we'll set it up, and we did. And then of course we have our Angeles hub, no, and we're building more. Second, we have been doing even before those outages what is called a distributed network. Kasi the problem we had with Pasig was, it hosted so many customers. So when it went down, naturally many customers got affected. So we started it and we're still in the process, and we should complete by next year, no, distributing the network so that a single outage will not bring down so many customers. Because sometimes, no matter how proactive or how forward looking you are, there are unexpected things that happen, no, beyond our control. Tapos, uh, recently, it's a whole lot of fiber cuts, no. Uh, we have a network that has two paths, the primary and the redundancy or the secondary, no. So one time we had three fiber cuts, so affecting Cavite, Laguna, three. So the other part of the hardening that we're doing is implementing technology that will allow us to have more than two paths. So instead of just the primary and the redundant, there would be a third or a fourth or even a fifth, no? Kasi the technology needs to be able to support that kind of configuration. And this is again in line with the fact that we cannot control fiber cuts. We even have what we call bantay cable. These people patrol our major backbones, and when they see that there's activity that may potentially affect our network, they try to intervene. But again, let's say you pass by at 8 a.m. and then 4 p.m. somebody starts digging, then you lose a fiber. So that's the response we have. No, it's a major investment, hardening the network, having more fiber paths, changing the technology to allow us to leverage the multiple fiber paths, hardening the systems inside our nodes, no, the power, the cooling, and we've also implemented real-time monitoring ngayon, no? So it can monitor temperature, nag-overheat ba, which means the aircon is not working. It can monitor the battery condition. Kasi pag nag-brown out, the battery should carry the load, di ba? And generators, etc. So it's all going on as we speak, and we're trying to finish it as soon as possible. Kasi part of our philosophy talaga sa network is to have a high availability network. But,
Mm.
sometimes just learn as you go along. And kami naman kasi we're very agile, no? Very little bureaucracy, and it's relatively easy. But we're listed now, right? So we have to follow certain governance procedures. Relatively easy to get approval for strategic initiatives like hardening the network. Yeah.
Mm. Now, I want to talk about the use of the internet by several businesses naman.
Mm-mm.
Any observations? What types of businesses have ramped up their use of the internet, and how are you guys taking advantage of the new emerging trends during the pandemic?
The only maybe difference that we've noticed, no, because prior to the pandemic, we also served a lot of enterprises. That's why we relaunched our business segment, no, Converge Business. During the pandemic, people were not coming to the office, di ba? For example, BPO industry. So either they are not allowed to operate in the office, or you can only allow 50% utilization because of social distancing. So the connectivity or the bandwidth requirement of a call center actually decreased, but it moved to the homes of the employees, yung work from home. So we have a lot of contracts with call centers and BPOs where they buy broadband to be used by their employees who are working from home. So that has been the major shift, no? And I think in most industries, that has been really the case. Some segments, for example, yung fast food industry, no, there were a lot of closures. So many of them, obviously, also cut off their broadband lines. I wouldn't say right now that any enterprise actually increased their bandwidth requirement or connectivity requirement. It's been the same as before, save maybe for some companies who would downgrade, no. Now they realize that with 50% occupancy, I don't need to have so much bandwidth. But it's all shifted to the home for now. The other segment that has shown a difference really is the SMEs, no? In two ways. Many SMEs unfortunately have collapsed, right? They cannot sustain not operating for more than a few months, so they have to close down. And if they had connection again, it's one of the first things they will disconnect. But on the other hand, on the micro side of it, di ba, we know now that a lot of our countrymen are doing online selling. And reliable connection is now more important than ever. So yun naman, medyo tumataas. That's why last year we also decided to focus on the SME segment. Yun.
Mm. Now, actually, I've read up here na yung business segment nyo has Flexibiz Day and Flexibiz Peak. Can you discuss a little more about the features of these products?
Okay. Yeah, as we know, SMEs, they don't really have a whole lot of revenue. No, I mean the revenues are not as large as a corporate customer or an enterprise customer. So budget and costs are very important. But on the other hand, the requirement naman, the amount of speed they need has increased. So that's why we said, we need to come up with packages for SMEs that provide higher speeds at lower costs. The other major insight we had, and if you think about it, it's not rocket science. It was validated lang by asking customers. Most businesses don't operate 24 hours a day. Most of them would operate during the daytime. During the nighttime, the store is closed, right? The office is closed. Maybe you still need some basic connectivity for, let's say, the CCTV and stuff like that. No, so we said that why don't we create a package where a customer would choose the time of day that he needs more bandwidth. Let's say it's nighttime, daytime, generally daytime, no, or and then charge them less because you're not giving them a full service. Kasi during the nighttime, it will be about half the speed, which is to them is okay. If I'm not using it, then half the speed is okay. But there are also some customers who chose the night option. So for example, classic example talaga, the BPO industry. As we know, if you serve the American market, you operate at night. And during the day, most of the seats are empty. Nobody's using the network. So we developed it then. That's why we call it Flexibiz, because it's very flexible for them. It's a lot more bandwidth at a more affordable price. And that has been well accepted by the market. They're actually helping us to grow our revenues in the SME segment.
Mm. Now, speaking of revenues on the SME segment, do you have some prospects on that? Mga ilang percent yung tinatarget ninyong i-grow on the business segment?
I'd love to answer that, no. However, one of the things about being a listed company is you're not allowed to, to make disclosures that are not official. So we're about to disclose our results next month, no, for QT, and then there we can say that it's X% or so many millions or tens of millions. But it's been a growing segment for us, really. It actually helped us increase our business revenues, at least for the second quarter, compared to the first quarter, and definitely compared to the 2020, when the pandemic was at its worst.
Okay. I had to try to ask that question. No?
Ah,
But moving on,
yeah.
moving on to your expansion plans, Visayas in Mindanao. Ako, Sir Boboy, nasa Mindanao ako ngayon. And internet's a little wonky. So, what are your plans for the Visayas and Mindanao markets?
Yeah. Around, I think, the middle of the year, we turned up our Cebu backbone, at least one leg. And about 2 months ago, we turned up Davao. And then we're currently in the process of activating the redundancy leg, no, the second leg. Now, every town and city that our backbone passes, we would provide internet fiber internet services. So that's what we did in Luzon. Even the smallest towns in Bicol or in, for example, Pangasinan, we serve almost all the towns in Pangasinan. I think 50 something. No, as long as our network passes there, we will serve. So right now, the work that's been done, at least the one going to Davao, and then soon the redundancy, is passing through more or less the middle of Mindanao. But we definitely plan to serve the eastern side, and we plan to go all the way to Zamboanga on the western side. Same thing actually with Visayas, no? We are in many of the big islands now. Bohol will be done soon. In fact, we just went live in Masbate. I think we're probably the first fiber operator there, no? Masbate City, no? So, Masbate happens to be one of the major routes of our backbone. So we will get to as many places as we can, as fast as we can. That's what we call our Go National strategy.
Hmm. But what about for this year or maybe even next year? What are your targets for the Visayas and Mindanao? Kasi, you know, Smart Globe and other telco providers are already all over the Philippines. Pero I think others are also anticipating Converge in their area.
Yeah. So like I said, no, for example, Mindanao, we first went live in Davao, and then Cagayan de Oro, and then soon the other, cities like, let's say, Butuan, General Santos, and then progressively moving out. Same with Visayas, no. So we're now live in Cebu, in Iloilo, Panay Island, and as I mentioned, Bohol will be up soon, Leyte. So we will be progressively getting there. The most important thing is to finish the backbone, because once the backbone is done, again, any town and city, we will provide fiber internet service.
Mm. Now, of course, the telco companies have yung mga, I don't know, annual complaints na rin ng other companies is that mahirap yung permits at the local level. So, do you see the same concerns or has the situation improved and made it faster for you guys to set up infrastructure in underserved areas?
I think there haven't been too many issues in terms of permits from LGU. For one thing, kasi we only provide fiber internet, right? So, we don't provide cell phone services, for example. Yung kasi wireless, that requires a whole lot more permits, including health permits, di ba? Sa fiber, wala naman. Minsan lang, it would be hard to get a permit to excavate the road so that we can lay our underground fiber. And sometimes the reason for that is there's a road widening going on. No? So in the meantime, we will do what we call aerial. So we just put it on the poles muna just so we can complete our work. And then pagka okay na, then, we'll put in the underground. And inside the, towns and cities, I'm not aware that, we've had any major issues so far in terms of getting permits from the LGUs. And, at any rate today, there is already the anti-red tape authority. We are luckily not have been in a position where we have to knock on their door for help. And by the way, no, since we
Mm.
are building out in such a massive way, um, if there is a town, let's say, that is a bit delayed in terms of permit issuance, we just move on to the next first and then come back later when we get our permits. And there's there's not a lack of towns and cities to roll out fiber. So we're always busy. So yun yung sitwasyon
Mm.
namin. We haven't had any major issues with this. Imagine, we did a submarine backbone across the Philippines, right? So from Luzon to Mindanao, 20 landing stations and 20 submarine segments. And we started this year and we're almost done. So wala rin kaming naging permit issues doon.
Okay, that's good to hear. Now, I'm also curious. The elections season na, starting now and culminating to the actual elections next year. May impact ba on business? And how are you guys adjusting or taking advantage of the election season?
Well, I think for telcos, generally, that's more on the enterprise side, no? Kasi during the election, the government would spend some money to make sure that all of the voting precincts are online, di ba? And I used to work for Globe, so we did this many times. It's about 3-month contract to provide a connection to a certain school, and then there are like 42,000 or 46,000 public schools yata, di ba? So there's a lot of connectivity requirement, although it would be more short term. From the consumer side, the last election, we didn't really feel any negative or positive effect. So I don't know, maybe some of them did have extra money to spend, but that's not our target market anyway. Because again, we only do fiber and it's postpaid, no. So our customers tend to be those people who have an ability to pay, for example, a lowest plan, 1.5. They have the ability to pay that month in and month out. So we didn't really feel any plus or minus from the consumer side. Some on the business side, we want some contracts to provide connections to the government for election precincts.
Mm. Okay, now I want to talk about you naman, Sir Roboy. Medyo mahirap kang ma-interview and medyo mahirap mahagilap, especially now during the pandemic. Now, how are you holding up during these trying times? Any hobbies that you developed or how are you coping with this pandemic?
Well, one thing for sure, no, most of us think that it's more toxic now. Kasi, when pre-pandemic, we work in the office, just as an example, right? You have two 15-minute coffee breaks. You have lunch breaks, right? And, you spend some time walking from one office to another. And it wasn't that easy to set up meetings, no? So people would be very conscious about setting meetings and making sure that they're very organized and effective. Ngayon, everything is online. Zoom, Meets, Teams, right? You get meeting requests left and right. And I wouldn't blame them, no? Kasi sometimes these things, when you're in the office, you bump into somebody, you resolve them, di ba? But now that we don't see each other, then, you do it virtually. And it would be not unusual to see my calendar full from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., which is our normal working hours. And minsan kulang pa. Somebody would ask for 6 to 7, somebody would ask for 8 to 9. And then kami ngayon, we're a listed company, di ba? So we do a lot of briefings for investors and analysts. And some of them are American and European. So we're not, we're kind of used to having briefings done at 10 p.m. and so on. Pero weekends are okay naman. Wala masyadong work during the weekends. So I think yun ang isang major observation namin. Parang work became more toxic. And by the way, I think it's also gonna affect physical fitness of many people. One day I was sitting down for like 12 hours in a meet during the day, then investor briefings. Pagtayo ko, grabe, my back was hurting. But in the office, you stand up, you walk around, etc., etc. So
Mm.
ako naman, I've always loved to play golf. No, I'm an outdoor type of person. What I really miss though is being able to go to the beach. My son yesterday went to Bataan to Anbaya. He thought that it was all okay, so he played there. But then they did not allow him to go to the beach club. Sa beach club, kailangan daw ng PCR test. So it's kind of tedious and expensive to get a test just to go to the beach for a day. That's one I really miss, no. But I play a lot of golf on the weekends, And sometimes, because now I'm an early riser, I got trained. Sometimes 5:30, I go out and play, then come back and start working again. So it helps you keep
Mm.
sane, gives you a lot of vitamin D, sunlight, and it's very safe. No, you're outdoors, hot sun, strong wind, so very safe na hobby siya.
Mm. Now, although you work, yung sense ko is, although you work for a telco company, the internet, internet all over you. I mean, it's there, and you work in the internet industry. Would you recommend screen time breaks para hindi masyadong toxic?
Yes, definitely. Like I said, no, like my smartwatch would always remind me stand up and stretch, di ba? And by the way, ito, my glasses, the one I'm using now, it has a blue light filter. So, many
Mm.
things you learn over time that, doing this is not healthy then, di ba? So I totally agree with
Mm.
you. There are just certain days na ang break mo na lang if you're lucky, no, is lunchtime. But from 1 to 6 p.m., from 8 to 12, sunod-sunod na meetings. So, tama ka. Sana,
Mm.
and people when they book meetings, automatic it's 1 hour eh. It's not like, okay, 9 to 9:45. Hindi ganun, di ba? They book it 9 to 10.
Mm.
And then most of the time, overtime pa.
Mm. Now, very quickly, we don't have much time. No, what's the next trend, or what are the next upcoming trends that Converge is looking at? Ano ba? There's Facebook and the so-called metaverse, Internet of Things. Anong tinitingnan nyo na sa tingin nyo there's a lot of potential?
Well, if you look at the needs of a household, no, so definitely today being able to work from home is one of them, and that's what we're already doing and serving now. In the At the same time, entertainment, right? So we were all familiar with that. Whatever it is, Netflix, HBO, even just YouTube, no. So many movie outfits, as you know, are starting to do online only screenings, no? Yung mga launch nila are online na, hindi na sa movie houses. So we think that this will continue. Obviously, Netflix was the one who popularized it. And then another area would be safety and efficiency of your household. So you mentioned it, no, Internet of Things. So like me, my home, everything smart home. Hey Google, turn off study room aircon. Mga ganon, di ba? So
Mm.
ano siya? Convenience, but the part about home security automation, wala pa. Kasi sa US, ano na yan eh, it's kind of mainstream, no? Here, probably a bit early. Probably the costs are on the high side. But for high-end houses, we see it coming. Lalo na ngayon, ng mga developments, for example, sa video. No? CCTV. Dati CCTV, it's there, it's static, you review after something happens. There's a lot of artificial intelligence and video analytics products that are already mainstream. So they can record a video stream, not record, no, it's streaming, it's live, and then based on certain patterns, it can actually do certain automated functions. So that's another area where we're looking at, other than working, entertainment, and then the safety and efficiency of your household. So those are some things
Mm.
coming up for us now.
Okay, so more online concerts and potential use of Internet of Things, although at a limited basis, as you mentioned. Looking forward to developments in the coming years. And with that, thank you so much, Converge COO Jesus Boboy Romero, for your time. And I'm Ralph Rivas. Thanks for watching Business Sense.
Thank you, Ralph, and thank you to your viewers as well.